So the first thing is, let's understand the job market. If you've been out of the market for a couple of years unemployed and you haven't really been job searching, make sure you do a little research on what resumes should look like, cover letters, how to apply for jobs, how to find job leads, that kind of thing. That's most important. The second thing is, we have this term we use in job hunting called branding. It's also from marketing, but I don't want you to be scared by that term. Branding just simply means it's your promise of what you're going to deliver to the employer. And I want you to put that brand on everything you do. This is who I am. This is what I can bring to the employer on your resume, in your cover letter, when you're networking to people, what your references are going to say about you. All those things should have that branding statement. Unlike other job seekers, what you really need to do, put a lot of concentration, maybe 90, 95%, very highly concentrated on referrals. And referrals are simply people saying, hey, I know this person, and of course they could say your brand, your promise, perfect, and this is what they're going to bring to you. And referrals are going to get that, help you jump over that hurdle. So the employer might say, well, why has that person been unemployed for a couple of years? But if this other person is recommending him or her, recommending you, then okay, I'll give that person a chance. But then it's up to you in the interview. You still have to sell yourself, you have to sell that brand, and then get the job on your own. But referrals are going to get you in the door, get you that interview. If you just apply to job boards, employers are going to see that unemployment thing and they're going to pick 10 other people ahead of you, and you go to the bottom of the pile. Well, the best way to overcome a gap in your resume is to show that your skills are still current. That's the one fear that employers have when they see a gap. There are two types of resumes. There's the traditional resume, which has the experience first and then flows in a chronological order. But then there's something called a chrono-functional resume, where you talk about your experiences and you kind of bury that chronological thing at the bottom, so it's not, the gap is not as obvious. Now the downside is some employers look at chrono-functional resumes and say, maybe this job hunter is hiding something. So you need to be a little careful about that, maybe do a little research on the employer to find out what they're looking for. But the key thing is making sure you're current. And the other thing you can do if you have this gap is to look at other ways you can add experience while during that time. Don't make up experience, but if you happen to do some consulting or volunteering or a part-time job, sometimes people are embarrassed to say, well, I had to take a part-time job. We call that a survival job. But anything like that, don't be embarrassed about that. And finally, if you were caring for a sick parent or child or anything along those lines, it used to be you would hide that, you don't want to talk about that. But employers have said, well, I respect that because my parent is getting older and I'm worrying about what I'm going to have to do about that. So don't be afraid to say from XYZ to XYZ, I was caring for a sick parent or something along those lines, and fill that gap that way. I think being fired or downsized is a really hard thing for job seekers. Little secret, probably almost everyone you know at some point in their career, maybe not yet, will be fired or downsized. So the key thing is, I found with people that have been fired, is they sort of feel like there's a black mark on them. And so they job hunt kind of timidly. And so you need to sort of shed that. You need to find a way to say, I'm still valuable, I'm still okay, and then move on from there. Put it aside, put it down, and just step away from it. Because it's sort of odd, but employers, even if they didn't know you were fired, you go to an interview and there's just something different about how you respond to questions, and they can almost sense that. And of course, if they do background checks or things like that, they can find out anyway. What employers are really looking for is to say, what did you learn from that experience? And if you do that, the employer is going to say, okay, good. You've learned something, maybe we'll give it a chance to that person.